Everywhere you look, life is exuberant and heroic, pushing itself, extending itself to its limits. Einstein once remarked that the most unintelligible thing about the universe is that it's intelligible. I think by this he meant that there are patterns in the universe that anybody can observe if they look closely enough. Exuberance is everywhere. Understanding something about how people exercise and maintain their powers can help to explain a lot of otherwise very strange behavior. This understanding can also be very useful to anyone who would like to gain more control over their own lives and powers. Now, the reason for hitting this little ball around the grass, trying to get it into 18 different holes with various sizes of clubs, might seem a little difficult to explain. We could start by imagining some different ways of playing the game. Suppose that I'm the inventor of golf and can make up any rules I choose. Let's see what would happen. I may decide that hitting the ball around the course with a bent stick is okay for people who want to do it that way. For those more interested in efficiency, I'd recommend carrying the ball around in your hand, neatly dropping it into each hole as you get to it. Much of the time, people act as though avoiding difficult tasks or making difficult tasks easier is the most sensible thing to do. And yet it's obvious that this easy and efficient way of playing golf wouldn't be at all popular. Making golf easy removes the major reason that people play it at all. People like to play golf precisely because it is difficult. Human beings are the most avid learning creatures on this planet. We're designed to do difficult and challenging things. Even little challenges will do. Things like not stepping on the cracks in the sidewalk or counting the dots in ceiling tiles. When we aren't learning, growing, or challenging ourselves in some way, we tend to become bored and unhappy. Besides, powers that aren't exercised tend to become rusty and may fall apart completely. If we go for long periods of time without doing challenging things, it can become more and more difficult to do anything very hard. We then can become dependent on simple, easy activities, things that don't demand very much of us, things like eating and listening to music, napping, daydreaming, watching television, the universal activities. These activities are worth a study in and of themselves, but it's even more important to understand how people do keep themselves in shape, not just physical shape, but in shape for life. Games and playing are ways of exercising and exploring our powers, and rules in games are designed to make the activity a challenge. There could be many different ways of making the business of getting this ball into the holes a challenge. With a little creativity, any activity can be turned into a real challenge. This is observed trials, a form of motorcycling that is a combination of gymnastics, riding, and spy games all rolled into one. The object is to ride your motorcycle over a series of sections of difficult ground without falling off,
putting a foot down, or going out of bounds. Trials riding is especially interesting as an example of playing because it clearly illustrates the general mastery skills that are required to handle any new challenge. Trials is a learning game. Since it is not strictly a race, players take the time to plan their moves and learn as much as they can from watching each other. Look at the game closely and you will see exactly the same learning skills being exercised as those required to become a good surgeon or fly an airplane. Lots of practice, watching others, checking things out in advance, and learning from one's own successes and failures. Like any other ability, learning skills are developed and sharpened through practice. If life doesn't provide us with adequate challenges, we have to invent them. The challenge of trials riding is so appealing that the same game is played with mountain bikes, which opens the activity up to a lot more people. One of the reasons that trials is so engaging is that club members design the sections so that the challenges match the skills to the participants. Too much challenge and the game becomes a threat. Too little and it becomes boring. Providing just the right amount of challenge is the art of teaching, no matter what is being taught. Trials walking shows how easy it is to create challenges. The basic rules are the same, except that the penalty points are assessed for using hands, falling, or taking weight on anything but the feet. One of the best things about trials walking is that it can be done anytime one feels the need for a little challenge.
Let them think that one over for a while. People have always had ways of exploring and challenging their powers. But as living conditions changed over the centuries, the need for challenging activities also changed. Let me show you what I mean. Let's take a journey through time. Thousands of years ago, people lived in small roving bands. Life was very difficult, and everyone had a variety of challenging tasks to do every day, just to survive. They had to do things like obtain food on a daily basis, either by gathering edible plants, berries, or by hunting. And hunting required stamina, strength, but most of all, those uniquely human attributes of intelligence and cunning. Defense against predators and other troops of marauding humans was a daily reality. Danger lurked everywhere. The survival of the whole troop depended on everyone working together cooperatively to develop their powers. Children learned about life through first-hand observation and participation. They prepared themselves for the tasks of living by observing the adults and by playing with the tools and weapons that were available to them. With the agricultural revolution, people learned to plant crops, domesticate animals, and establish permanent settlements. Life became less hazardous, but the social organization required to make it all work became more complex. People began to do only one kind of thing. Farmers, soldiers, craftsmen, traders, specialized classes of people began to emerge. Life became easier and the challenges changed. No longer needing to run after their food, people developed games that exercised their powers, sporting versions of what used to be necessary for survival. Many of our present-day pursuits, games, and hobbies have their origins in this tradition. The Industrial Revolution changed things even more dramatically than the Agricultural Revolution. The invention of the steam engine changed not only the way we did work and produced things, but also in the way we organized our lives. Tasks that used to take a craftsman many years to learn could now be organized into factory production with everyone doing simple and repetitive jobs that could be quickly learned. While this resulted in an explosion of material goods, it also meant that many people ended up spending most of their lives doing terribly boring tasks that did little to develop their powers. Overworked but under-challenged, overcrowded and underpaid, industrial life for many was marked by problems of alcoholism, disease, and depression. For others who were in a position to accept the challenges, the period was full of opportunities for development, exploration, and new wealth.
There is a lesson here that is relevant today.
Our civilization is going through another major transformation. We're changing from an industrial society to an information society. Just as the Industrial Revolution was caused by the steam engine replacing and extending muscle power, the Information Revolution is caused by the microchip extending and replacing the power of the brain.
The developments are happening very quickly, and there is reason to expect that they will have the impact of all the other historical revolutions. This means that much of what we now take for granted will be changed. Many current jobs and organizations will disappear, and new ones will be created. Swept along by events, some people will find themselves trapped in narrow and unchallenging life situations. Others will find a wealth of new opportunities. In a free society, such as ours, most of the responsibility to adapt, change, and grow is left up to the individual. It is now more important than ever to understand how to prepare ourselves for the challenge of freedom.
There are thousands of different pursuits that will help you to exercise and explore your powers. If you're alive, you've got powers. Powers are all the abilities of living things to change themselves or their environment.
Being free means taking responsibility for your own powers. Since powers are developed through learning, freedom also means choosing what to learn. In selecting what to learn, there are two different types of ability to consider. One type, field skill, is based on the specific requirements of whatever it is we are engaged with. For example, putting and driving balls in the field of golf, spelling words accurately in the field of writing, or tuning an engine in the field of mechanics. There are thousands of different fields of skills that could be learned, and most formal education, coaching, and recreation programs focus on field skills.
There's another type of power based on personal style and control, how a person deploys and employs their powers. This type of power can be difficult to illustrate because it involves the way something is done and not so much what is done. For instance, this person seems to be illustrating the ability to be meticulous. This one is definitely enthusiastic. This one seems to be being imaginative. And this one, well, maybe the best way to describe this would be casual. There are over 150 common everyday terms to describe character skills. Words like courageous, persistent, creative. These are very important skills and a major part of our self-design. Yet it's not widely appreciated that character skills are learned exactly the same way that field skills are learned, through practice. Natural ability does make a difference, but it can only determine how far and how fast we can go. It cannot determine what we do. When we choose what to do and how to do it, we are designing ourselves. No exploration of learning and challenge would be complete without mentioning the biggest barrier to learning, the fear of making mistakes. This barrier is so important that we need to take a closer look at some of its roots.
Mistakes, setbacks, and confusion are a natural and necessary part of learning. The only way to succeed is to stay with it, fail intelligently, and learn from the mistakes. Yet we often act as though making mistakes is abnormal and something to be avoided at all costs. Part of the reason for this is that fear of failure is widely used as a teaching strategy. Much of what we would have youth learn is not engaging enough to create a mastery interest in itself. So we up the stakes by threatening rejection and disapproval for not getting it right. This ancient strategy works to a point, but it also tends to make social approval the main purpose of learning and increases anxiety about mistakes. But there is another reason why people don't like to be seen making mistakes. All species of animals have a way of announcing that they are mateable. They may grow mating feathers or antlers or produce special odors. Human beings do something like that as well, but it is through behavior that we announce our readiness to mate. We do it by appearing to be a finished product, capable of handling anything. In short, we become cool. Popular culture is full of examples of male heroes who are never shown learning never have to practice, take a course, or call their moms for advice. The image obviously works because all of these heroes are magically attractive to the opposite sex. Although times are changing, the traditions for women have been a little different. While men have been creating the image of being able to handle anything, women have to be careful not to threaten the illusion by appearing to be too competent themselves. For females, success in the mating game focused more on attracting attention through appearance and poise, yet the basic message is still the same. I am a finished product. Mating games and image influence everyone's behavior, although each of us reacts in different ways. We still have much to learn about how best to equip people to look after their own powers and becomings. Many people are imprisoned in their familiar routines because they feel that they can't afford to be seen doing anything that requires them to become a beginner again. Learning new things often looks and feels childlike, something that the cool part in all of us would like to avoid. Most of the world's great philosophers and religious leaders were aware of this problem and had a solution. The exact words vary, but the message is the same. Become as a child again. If you think you've arrived, you haven't begun.
A few years ago, video games became very popular, and with good reason.
Just as good nutrition is essential for growth, people also need an adequate diet of challenge. Something like a challenge hunger can be seen in the way youth respond to arcade games. Their interest is not to develop the ability to push buttons, but to develop the ability to be alert, responsive, bold, careful, and calm under pressure. Adults often forget how much the opportunity to play has changed in just a few decades. It is no longer possible for most youth to explore their powers and judgment through building tree houses, setting off fireworks, or shooting their BB guns in the backyard.
This is why it's so important for communities to ensure that there are appropriately challenging engagements available for people of all ages, but especially for youth. But it's also important to understand that freedom doesn't just happen. People must want to be free and have enough knowledge, experience, and support to know what freedom means. Every generation has some area of life to pioneer. One of our frontiers is the practical design of freedom at the personal level, equipping ourselves with the skills and knowledge to take responsibility for our own powers and becomings.